Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason. Here are your hosts, Richard Saunders and Stefan Soika.
Hello, Richard.
Stefan, I love coming here to do the opening for the show. I do. It's great.
It's
fun.
good.
It's good
Most of the time.
Most of the time. But there's some weird noise outside.
Yes, I know. There's been a jackhammer going since, would you believe it, about 5:30 this morning.
Really?
I believe, because I've got a sort of big block of vacant land next door.
Yeah.
I believe they found a crystal mine.
That explains
a mine of healing crystals.
Healing crystals.
I think as soon as they found it, they've gone in. They haven't worried about any of the council bylaws. They've just gone in and started digging because we really need those healing crystals in some of the disaster spots around the world.
We do. No wonder you're so healthy all the time.
I know. I didn't realise.
Yeah.
Since I moved into this place, I've been feeling $1 million.
It's all healing crystals.
But damn it, they found them. Now they're digging them up. I'm going to go downhill now.
So if listeners hear a jackhammer.
That's right. Yeah, so I do apologise. Normally this soundproof, amazing studio here is a little bit noisy in the background.
There it is again. Yeah, I can hear it. Never mind, we'll plug on regardless.
Let's just carry on.
We better. Welcome to episode 73.
No way.
Yes, way.
73. It seems like only last week it was episode 72.
It was.
That's phenomenal.
It was.
Oh, how time flies.
We had a lot of listener feedback from last week's episode because talking about last week and last month and last year.
Oh, travelling back in time.
From the very first time that I came along to Net FM.
Yes.
Way back in 2001, and we did that interview spot, and those interviews lasted a year. Did you know that?
Really?
Yeah, the Skeptics and I came in on and off for a year after that.
Oh, it felt like about 10 years.
It did.
No, that was a great time. Yeah, we had that was a real studio.
It was.
It was actually Australia's first internet radio station.
It was a tiny little proper radio studio. I remember it was bright orange, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was all sort of trendy colours and stuff. Yeah, it was great. We had a lot of fun there.
It was pretty pioneering stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Before the age of podcasting. We were there.
We were there. We were happening.
Pioneers. So what's happening this week?
Well, this is the age of podcasting.
It certainly is.
It is, as you said, episode 73 for the 12th of March. Even this year's starting to sort of tick on.
I know. You know, the funny thing is, it's actually my father's birthday today. He's passed away for a while, and I did my calculations. He would be 97 this year. Oh. I couldn't believe it.
Wow. I guess so.
He was a late starter.
He was.
He was a very, very late starter. March the 12th.
March the 12th.
Here we are. So what's on this week, Richard?
Well, we've got an interview by our reporter Kylie Sturgess with Milton Mamakides, who's a UK musician.
Ah, musician. I love musicians, but only in the platonic sense.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Now, he's a really interesting guy. He had leukemia.
Oh.
And he was sort of locked away in hospital wards for ages, and he's going to talk about mostly his music today.
Right.
He's a blogger too.
Does that mean there was a miracle healing involved?
You know, I don't think so.
Right. But he's okay now.
He seems to be okay. I think it was the doctors and nurses that helped him this time.
Right, and drugs and things.
And drugs
treatments.
and treatment.
Actual medical treatments. Yeah.
A miracle.
Phenomenal.
A miracle.
Miraculous.
And actually, speaking of our reporter Kylie, she is one of the presenters at the Rise of Atheism conference happening right now.
Ooh, that sounds ominous.
In Melbourne.
The Rise of Atheism.
Yeah, with Richard Dawkins, P.Z. Myers.
Geez, all the non-atheists are going to see that as like, Satan coming out of the ground and taking over the whole world.
He comes out of the ground, does he?
He does.
He doesn't fall from the sky?
Actually, that's a good scientific question.
Yes,
we'll have to investigate that.
He was a snake in a tree, wasn't he?
Was he?
He's a clever guy.
Oh, he's very clever. He's deceptive. He's a deceiver.
Ooh.
So whatever you think,
yes,
he's doing something different.
Even if you know what he's doing.
Even if you know you don't know.
Even
if he tells you, he's lying.
So you can assume he's lying
about everything.
Then you know, but that's a lie.
Even the fact that he's lying.
That's amazing.
You wonder why people get so confused and why there's a rise in atheism, really.
That's why.
Exactly.
Obviously why, because they're so confused.
They're going for the truth. Well, that's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. So well done, Kylie. So everybody who's just downloaded this show, and if you're at the conference, say hi to Kylie for us.
Yes, she's a bit of a legend around here.
She's a bit of a legend. And that's followed by another extended think tank.
An extended think tank?
Yeah.
What happened? A couple extra beers or something, was it?
Actually, no, we weren't drinking that time.
Oh, really?
No, we were just chatting away.
Yeah. Okay, only any exciting topics of conversation, or should we just wait?
Always exciting
We'll
topics
just
of
wait and
conversation.
see.
Always in the old think tank. And by the way, talking about PZ Myers a bit earlier, he's going to be in Canberra for the Canberra Skeptics in the pub on Saturday the 20th of March at King O'Malley's Irish Pub.
Hey. And is he going to be doing any music at all?
Well, PZ Myers doesn't... Well, he might.
Oh, right.
He might.
Oh, so it's only Milton who's a
Milton's the musician. PZ Myers is the blogger.
Blogger. Right, but he still plays a keyboard.
Well, the computer keyboard... Oh, dear.
I'm having one of those days, listeners.
It's the jackhammers.
It's the jackhammers. The crystals are all out of alignment.
It's not happening.
No, it's not at all. And how's your actual career been going? Because you've been kind of flitting all over the world doing all kinds of things. Any big news for you coming up?
Well, apart from the fact that we're lining up TAM Australia.
Oh, which is going to be massive.
In late November.
Oh.
The crystal mine's at it again. In late November. Getting ready for TAM Las Vegas.
Well, when's that?
That's in July.
Right.
In Las Vegas. And Dragon Con in September in Atlanta. And I'm trying to wangle my way, see how I go to going to TAM London.
Oh, you wangler. You are probably the most jet-setting skeptic on the planet at the moment, I would suggest.
Richard Dawkins probably out jet sets me.
Oh, true. No, he's not a skeptic. He believes in evolution.
Well, that's an interesting point. I don't think he would say that.
I know, I'm just kidding. I'm a big fan of Richard Dawkins.
Good on Richard Dawkins.
Yeah.
I hope he's having a good time in Melbourne. He was in Sydney, of course, a few days ago.
Did you catch up with him?
I did not. Because I
no.
will be catching up with him in Las Vegas.
Ah, right. And he's got a heavy schedule. So even someone as legendary as you has to wait in line.
I would. And he'd look at me and say, who the hell are you? I expect that's what would happen. But our listeners are saying, where the hell's the show?
They certainly are. I can understand that. I do apologise. Like I said, the crystals are all out of alignment today. So let's just get on with it.
Let's do it.
I'm Kylie Sturgess, and I'm talking to Milton Mermakides. Milton lives in London and is currently working on his PhD. At the same time, he's a band leader, composer, and an artist of many different forms of music. As a leukemia survivor and continuing activist, his blog entries and YouTube videos are available at his Milt Central site. In addition to that, you can also listen to episode 153 of the Geologic podcast, where both Milton and his wife Bridget talk about their experiences. For this interview, I decided to focus on Milton's music, in particular, how science has inspired him.
Were you always interested in a career in music? Because looking over your biography, I can see that you graduated with a BSc from the London School of Economics.
No, it wasn't actually. My father was a physicist, nuclear physicist at CERN. And so I grew up near the particle accelerator there. And so I was really into space and physics as a kid. And I used to go around and see these incredible particle accelerators. And I was there for the inception of the internet. And I used to play on those computers and chat to my dad from a different office. And he taught me a little bit of Fortran, the computer language. Yeah. And so I was utterly into science as a kid, but I didn't see it as science or anything like that. I just saw it as beautiful because I'd walk into this place and there was aesthetically beautiful imagery. And I didn't really separate that aesthetic of science with art. And I still don't, actually. So I wasn't specifically into music from the beginning, but I've always had an aesthetic appreciation of science, which feeds into my music. That's it. And music came a little later. Music actually was when I heard, my uncle gave me a tape of the Beatles, and at one side was Sgt. Pepper's and the other side was Magical Mystery Tour. And I think I probably spent a year listening to it. It was at once familiar and at once surprisingly amazing. and I completely fell in love with music at that point, but never pursued it till much later, actually.
So what led you to change career direction?
I was good at maths and economics at school, and without really thinking or considering what I wanted, it was just natural to go to LSE, which was the most prestigious economics school. And I had some philanthropic ambition to, if I could make poorer people more wealthy without affecting more wealthy people, then, that's something I really wanted to do. Of course, after 3 years of studying economics, I realized I didn't want it that badly.
So both you and Mick Jagger both went to the same
school. We did. He was slightly before me, I think, but
I would say so, yes.
And it was an interesting place, but mainly I learnt that I wasn't really into it. But I pushed through and completed it. As I worked on that, I realised that it wasn't really where my heart lay. And as soon as I finished that degree, I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston to study there. And I just went a straight switch, basically.
did you think you first started becoming a skeptic?
That's a good question. That's a very good question. It's interesting because certain events happened when I was younger, which sort of led me to believe that there was some connection to everything. And in retrospect, I realized that that was just, confirmation bias and so on. But there was this one event when I used to have to travel a lot by plane as a kid to visit my parents. I went to boarding school. And then there was one airline flight where the plane was delayed because they were looking for someone called Stephanie Chick. That's where I remember it clearly. We couldn't set off until she was found. They didn't find her. They had to remove her luggage. And I was thinking, did she change her mind? Did something physically happen to her? I was just a kid, but just thinking about that. And then we arrived at the other end. I got home. And then as I took my shoes off, I found the sticker, which was the luggage sticker with Stephanie Chick, with her name on the bottom of my shoe. Oh. I just thought, how odd. How odd is that? What are the chances? That sort of thing. I didn't know what it meant, and it didn't mean anything, but I really had thought about her, and there she was on my shoe. So these were the sort of odd things that we're thinking, but I was always sort of questioning what everything was from a young age. And I remember really being 5, pondering the nature of time, what time was. And I remember thinking, I can't imagine a time beyond this moment I'm living at the moment. I know there will be one, but I just can't imagine it. I would kind of stop for a moment and I think, I'm not going to let time go on any further than this point. I'm just going to rein it in right here. This will be it for the universe. This is it right here. And knowing that it wouldn't stop, this sort of play that I would have. And I would continue that, and I still do that now. So I would always have this play with the world and reflect upon it as a kid and get into these sort of philosophical quandaries. I'm told that they used to find me under tables just thinking. Don't know why I had to do it under the table. But and I had a cousin. Story is, whilst he was running around the beach eating cigarette butts, I would just stare into space and just think. And looking in the night sky, it completely blew me away. But I remember as a kid, I had this book that was about the future, what we'd expect to see in the future. And, you know, it was about robots, all the cool stuff you want to read about, space travel. I remember it had settlements on the moon. It's awesome. And Mars, a little trickier. And then there was wave energy. They had these things on the oceans to collect the energy from the waves. I thought that's amazing. And then it was going up to the year 2000, what you'd expect to see at 2000, and robots in the home. And I was, oh, this is just amazing. I can't wait. Yeah. And there was this one last picture, and it said the year 3000 onwards. And all it was like an eclipsed Earth, a picture of an eclipsed Earth. And it just said, we have no idea what would happen the year 3000 onwards. You know, our imaginations can't reach that far. And I remember looking at that, and I did a quick calculation. I realized that I just wouldn't see it. And I just sat there. I'm probably about 7 and just cried my eyes out.
Oh.
Not really that I'd die, but because I wouldn't see it.
Yeah.
And so I always had this inquiring mind. But the whole skeptic thing, it was something that never really bothered me what other people thought and what I didn't consider beliefs until I think it might have been The Selfish Gene, actually, which I read when I was about 18. Yeah, because I remember someone earlier making this argument that I don't care how many times a creature falls from a tree, it's not going to start growing a feather. And it's a stupid argument, but I couldn't see what was wrong with it. I couldn't see there was, climbing Mount Improbable. That was it. I couldn't see that one feather would make a difference, or a layer of downy fur to flight. Not thinking about soaring and breaking falls and all these adaptation that could be used for another. And I never thought about that. So when I was just linking that idea of not knowing something, and then I became interested.
Becoming a more critical thinker of what's going on around you.
Exactly. But there was a very important book that kind of got me on the road of skepticism, in that it did away with the need of God, and that was, which isn't the intention of the book at all, but it was Gödel, Escher and Bach, An Eternal Golden Braid. And it was the idea of levels and you've read it, right?
Absolutely.
So I loved that book, read it twice, and wrote to Douglas Hofstadter, and I was completely moved by it, and the idea of, I love Escher so much, and that is a big inspiration. And that's not, you wouldn't think that's an atheist or a skeptical position, but actually somehow I found that, for example, the whole ant colony likening to the human mind, where each constituent part is not smart, but the interaction creates intelligence. And in a way, that's quite, for me, that negates any need of a sort of higher presence, because the higher presence can be emergent. And so I think that was a kind of soft introduction into that world, rather than suddenly deciding that I was going to kill God. I just found a sort of a more logical path. I took a leap of reason, is the way I like to put it, rather than a leap of faith.
Quite a bit of this reflection ended up getting you a place at TAM London as a special guest, a scholarship to attend on the basis of your essay called A Life Examined. Can you tell us a little more about that?
that was a great honour, and I was really thrilled to have won that. Strangely, it's an essay that I didn't start till the day of the deadline, and finished it in literally 45 minutes. Just one go, I wrote it off. The day I had to go to a friend's wedding and then playing a different wedding gig that evening. So in the morning, I just thought, oh, it's the deadline. I might as well do something. Did it basically in one go. Sent it off to a couple of people, like you, I think.
Yes, yeah.
For proofreading, and then by the end of the day, I sent it on via iPhone to the organisers. Obviously, I got some quite interesting material to put in the essay. I didn't have to, I wouldn't have been able to do a very interesting essay, I think, like yours on any particular skepticism or scientific or any references, heaven forbid. I had good material to work with, I think. So, but I really enjoyed writing it, and to get positive feedback from James Randi. I mean, it's just wonderful, really, just lovely.
Now, reflections upon space, time, the future. This was something you did as a child, and we can see this continue on through all of your music as well. I'm looking at for example, your listen page on your MiltonMermakades.com site. Event Horizon, which was a composition inspired by quantum theory and particle physics. We have Bloodlines, which was inspired whilst you were in treatment for leukemia. Is there anything that doesn't inspire you from science? That's my question.
No, I don't. I haven't found anything yet. I mean, there's countless things that I haven't written a piece about, but I doubt that you could find something that wouldn't be interesting and wouldn't be applicable to some musical form or other. I can't think of any. It's all too damn interesting.
What's your PhD going to be focusing upon? I have had a look at a little bit of it.
The PhD it's a PhD in electronic composition, but it's electronic composition that is derived from an understanding of jazz improvisation, which is what my formal training is from Berklee College. Let me see I should be able to do this succinctly. Obviously, I can't, but essentially, okay, I'm going to do it in one sentence now. The reapplication of improvisational mechanisms in a stylistically diverse portfolio of new electronic works.
Very well done. That's excellent.
There you go. There you go.
Aren't you currently involved in some way with the film of Storm?
Actually, yes. They've redone the music with live players, and Bridget and I transcribed the original, which was in a sort of loop-based sampled version of it. Okay, sorry, let me talk in English and not musotech speak.
That's okay.
Tim Minchin's original version was constructed with loops, which are sort of prepared musical moments and sections. They're not real instruments. Well, they're recorded real instruments, but they are sort of inflexible in that way. And because they have to stretch to fit the time and so on, the sound quality isn't great. I mean, it sounds great for live and so on, but whenever he's recorded it, he's used live players. So when the Storm movie came about, it was a good opportunity to do a nice recording of it with real players who can respond to what is playing. And so Bridget and I transcribed the original one, which was quite an undertaking because it's over 9 minutes and complicated, and then recorded it at the Royal Academy and it sounds really nice. So yes. So I was very happy to be involved.
You know, the funny thing is that I've asked you about all the things you've done, and I haven't even mentioned that on your site, on Milt Central, people can see the videos and the blogging of your battle with cancer. And so people can even go there and read the history.
Oh, yeah, we haven't mentioned the cancer thing.
No,
it's quite refreshing.
You're just so multifaceted that it was like, oh, yes, and there's that as well. But how that inspired your music, certainly, yeah.
I'm kind of pulling away from that. I'm still involved with leukemia research, and people. I'm contacted all the time by the newly diagnosed. But I'm trying. I don't want to sort of overplay that card, and I don't want it to become just a broken record. And so, I'm trying to push on with other stuff. But it was a very sort of important experience in my life, so I can't. Yeah. negate it completely. But I'm happy to talk about that as well. It was...
See, this is where I get grumpy with bloody George, because he stole all the goddamn good questions, as you can see. But yeah, that's why I thought, okay, in this interview, I'm going to move more towards the science and the...
George is awesome. George is great. And that was, I contacted him because I had to tell him how good he was, basically. But I just like that skeptic who's doing stuff, that's the sort of thing. Because he was a musician as well, so it was very interesting. And then that sort of delivery of skeptical viewpoint in a humorous way is very refreshing.
This should be, at least if it could be, one damn cool intro. It's been quite a long while since I changed the theme. Wonder if Milton would let me use his tune. This part making it hard to sing, cause all the polyrhythms, what the fuck? I meant to sing with shittier stuff for much shittier reasons.
Yeah, well, the same viewpoint is very nice for you to be asking about my music and stuff like that. It's a nice change, because I've been on radio and on newspapers all talking about my my leukemia. Oh, you're so brave, all that crap. And so it's really nice to talk about other stuff, to be honest. You see, the thing is, we're all subject to these things, and that's why I'm careful not to. And I don't manage it, but I try not to be too snobby or superior.
Yeah.
Because we're all subject to it. I mean, most of my day I spend my time doing irrational things, and some things aren't irrational if they make you feel better in a way. Do you know what I mean? I do certain things which. I'm not doing here's an economics thing. There was all these mathematical models where everybody did high-level calculus trying to maximize their personal utility or happiness, and that's kind of put me off, because I just know that even if we had that, we'd be doing sums all day and not living, So there's certain things that are instinctual, and also there is happiness in some sort of irrationality. The irrationality of music and love and all those things are in a way irrational, other than they give you great pleasure. So I think my beef is really when an irrationality spills into the freedom of others and also scientific and medical progress. That just pisses me off,
I see you get quite virulent on Twitter at times, having fights with homeopaths on occasion.
Well, yeah, this is one thing that's changed, is that it does actually matter to me. I was quite laissez-faire with all this stuff. But if someone's claiming to cure... I mean, I saw, kids dying of leukemia. Yeah. And if I see a homeopath claiming to be able to cure it, how can I not be offended, or not at least ask the question, are you sure about that? This whole 1023, I took part in that because... it thrives on ignorance, really, and wishful thinking. And I don't think that's any way for a civilized society to behave, in at least in the field of medicine. There's this conflating of herbal with homeopathy. On TV, they talk about 1023 and these phone-ins. And why do I have to know it better than that? I know what homeopathy is and what it claims to be and how it claims to work. And yet on TV you see this. I used to trust that people knew things better than I did.
Yeah.
That was a mistake. But anyway, so what happened after 1023? A lot of homeopaths claimed that, of course, we wouldn't overdose because homeopathy is harmless, and or B, any amount of homeopathy is the same as one dose. Why they have recommended doses on their packets, then I don't know. But so they're saying, the homeopath knew that it's just the same as taking one. Try taking Aurum Metallicum 10M twice a day for 2 weeks, and then you'll be sorry, then you'll be a believer. And so that's what I've done. I've gone and bought this thing called Aurum Metallicum 10M. M is 1000 C.
Oh, it's the Roman numerals, of course.
Yeah, well, it's not quite right, because C would be 100 and M would be 1,000, but M is actually 1000 C. So it's pretty illiterate. So I've got 10,000 C, which is 20,000 X, I believe, which is so beyond avocado's number. I like to call it that. It's so beyond that, I mean, it's an incredibly diluted. And so a homeopath has challenged me to take these for a week. I'm going to start recording it today, and you can follow those exploits. It's meant to cause suicidal depression. So we'll see how I feel about it in 2 weeks. I don't know. And, this ain't going to make any difference to anybody, but, at least I've gone through the process. That's wonderful. And it's all really exciting. You see, I've got a positive, a skeptical approach. And I love Christopher Hitchens, but I don't really want to be a whiskey-sodden, cigarette smoking, living in constant annoyance. Because that's the problem, is I went quite hard down the anti-vax route, as you guys well know. You know that path, and it's really it's hurtful, and there's only so much of that I want to expose myself to a day. And you and Dr. Rachael, I mean, to be up close to a Merrill Dory thing, I mean, there's a huge level of sort of, don't you feel your blood pressure rising with every encounter?
Meeting the parents of Dana McCaffrey was absolutely staggering. That happened at the last Australian Skeptics.
It's so wonderful that they're supportive. I mean, that's my real admiration is for, like, the parents of autistic children who are not anti-vax, and the McCaffreys, yeah.
So all of this, and you're still a gigging musician. So what other projects have you got now? Have you even got an album in the works, for example?
Let's see. Hang on, let me think. What shall I tell you about? Okay.
Spoilers.
What's quite cool is I've recently, because I'm interested in all sorts of music, not just this electronic nerdery, but I literally love all types of music. And recently there's a band who has asked me to join them, who are called the Voodoo Trombone Quartet. They're kind of well known. It's ska, and it's a sort of a new eclectic form of ska, and the music is on Ugly Betty and on Being Human and on MTV and various TV shows. I don't know if you know those ones, but it's well received music, and it was originally a sort of studio band, but now it's going live And so we have gigs all year, which is great, including the V Festival, Beat Herder, Big Chill, and Glastonbury, which will all be fun.
Ooh, yeah.
So that's it, and I get to go out and play that sort of music, which I'm completely loving doing. And actually, that's a interesting thing, is that what's so-called simple music, like ska and rock, I don't think of simple at all. I just don't think people try and fit it into a classical analysis and miss all the good stuff. All music is equally valid and is an equal opportunity to be of deep musical expression without snobbery. Okay, and what else do I have? I've got... I work with a great young cellist called Peter Gregson, who's on George Schrabb's album. He is on the Small Comfort track. And we do very interesting electronics and cello live performance. It's sort of crossover classical electronic stuff. I think it's very, very beautiful. And we've got several performances lined up in concert halls this year. Last year, I did this great documentary on caffeine, which was, and it was a planetarium movie, which followed the path of a caffeine molecule through the human body. It's amazing. Computer animated planetarium movie. And you follow this caffeine molecule until it docks with the neuron receptor in the brain, causing a mild euphoria. And it was absolutely wonderful and perfect for me because I got to learn about it and did cool sounds for it. And it was premiered at the British Science Festival last year, but now it's apparently going out internationally, and it's going to go to Australia, I've just heard.
Oh, wonderful.
And there's a place close to Sydney. It sounded like a comedy name. Wollongong.
Wollongong.
Yeah, is that a place?
That is indeed a place.
Well, that might be that one. It sounds pretty close, and that's really exciting if people get to see that, because that was a lot of fun. And I did an album with a friend of mine, which was a blend of jazz and electronics, and that's been signed to De Wolf Records, and they want another album, so that's going to take up my time. What else? I just finished the Tam London DVD, 4 DVD. I just scored that, and that's coming out soon, very soon. So you'll get to see what happened there.
To learn more about Milton's ongoing adventures, you can head to his official site at miltcentral.com. That will lead you both to his blog and the site that features all of his projects. You can follow his Twitters on www.twitter.com/miltonline.
terrorism, conspiracy theories, and the 1979 Sydney Hilton bombing, Lockerbie bombing, the 9/11, and London 7/7 bombings will be covered in a talk by adjunct Professor Clive Williams. This is a free talk. It's going to be held in the ACT here in Australia, the Australian Capital Territory, Monday the 15th of March 2010, 6 p.m. till 7:30 p.m. at the Finkel Theatre, John Curtin School of Medical Research. This is being held by the Canberra Skeptics and the ANU Strategic and Defence Studies Centre. Sounds like a fascinating talk, and you can find out more by dropping an email to ACT1, that's ACT numeral 1 at skeptics.com.au.
This is Desiree, host of Canadian radio show Skeptically Speaking. For those of you that don't know, Canada's quite similar to Australia. People know us primarily for our weather and our beer, and we have a queen, just like you do. Same one as you do, actually. We also have mythical monsters, and people who think they have psychic abilities, and people who think that vaccinations are bad for you. So keep listening to the Skeptic Zone, and know that we're all in this together.
Join us now for Drinking Skeptically in the Think Tank.
I didn't start anything today. I'm just sitting here going red. That's the only thing I'm doing.
As a good Dianne, you start everything around here, I think.
I do not.
You do. Look, you've gone bright red again. But I'd like to welcome you, Dianne, to the Think Tank. Hello.
Thank you, Richard.
And hello, Eran.
Hello, Richard. I'm not red.
You're not red. No, you're sort of pinky, sort of fleshy, sort of... Well, yeah, okay. And Joanne Benhamu, hello.
Hi, Richard.
Hi. And hello, Dr. Rachael.
Hello, Richard.
And hello to myself. Hello.
Hello, Richard.
Yes, hello, Richard. Cheers, everybody. Welcome to the Think Tank again. Lovely. Diet Coke today.
Doesn't it have high fructose in it, Richard?
Does it?
I think it does.
Is that a bad thing?
Yes, it's poisonous.
It's a miracle we're all alive.
It is.
Yes.
I think that every morning. Now, listen, before we get going, let me just say that what a pleasure it was to come along and support Dr. Rachael yesterday. We recorded this yesterday. ABC Radio here in Sydney interviewed Dr. Rachael as part of a show called Conversation Hour, In Conversation?
Conversations with Richard Fiedler.
With Richard Fiedler. Mm-hmm. And I'll put a link on the show notes, but if listeners go to the ABC website in Australia, which is abc.net.au, yes, and look for Radio and Conversations with Richard Fiedler, you can download the whole interview with Dr. Rachael, which I thought was really good, Rachael.
And Fiedler is spelled Fidler, I think.
That's correct, yeah.
And in fact, I'll just play a little segment from it now.
Rachael, let's talk about your role as a kind of public skeptic in refuting what you see to be as unscientific claims. I got an email yesterday from Tony and David McCaffrey, and I'll just paraphrase it. They sent me this lovely email saying, "We understand you're interviewing Dr. Rachael Dunlop tomorrow. To us, Rachael is a superhero. Our baby daughter, Dana, died from pertussis, or whooping cough, on 9th of March 2009 after being airlifted from Lismore Base Hospital to the Brisbane Mater Children's Paediatric Intensive Care Unit. We understand she was one of 4 babies airlifted from this area during one of the worst pertussis epidemics on record. We spoke up to warn other parents," they wrote, "because we were never warned, but we were absolutely shocked at the vitriol and lunacy that we were subjected to as a result. If it were not for Dr. Rachael, as you're known sometimes, and the Australian skeptics, we would still be curled up in a corner, but their care and support has helped us to start living again." They say, "We praise and thank Rachael for her unerring dedication to give parents the facts about vaccination and other medical issues, and she is also an exceptionally caring person to boot." Isn't that nice?
Oh, that's lovely, yeah.
This is an important part of it.
Now, wasn't that lovely of them?
It was lovely. And yesterday was actually the first anniversary of Dana. So it was appropriate, I guess, that I was interviewed about this issue yesterday. Yeah.
I thought that was wonderful. So yes, listeners, please, if you want to hear the full interview of Dr. Rachael, you know where to get it from, the ABC website, and I'm sure you'll enjoy listening to that as much as I enjoyed hearing it live in the studio.
It was live, yeah.
It was live, yeah.
Which is sometimes a bit scary, but...
Now, while I'm on a roll here, I'll quickly mention that Richard Dawkins is in town. He's heading for Melbourne, and by the
He's
time...
already in Melbourne.
He's already in Melbourne, is he? Okay. But last night? No, the night before last.
Monday night.
We're recording this on a Wednesday, so it was Monday night. He was on a national program called Q&A, which is a live panel show. And they had also sitting next to him the parliamentary member...
Senator.
Senator
Stephen Fielding.
From the Family First
Party. Representing 56,735 or something thereabout primary votes, which is not a lot.
Not a lot. But but Richard Dawkins soon flushed him out as a young Earth creationist. Mm-hmm. And the look on Richard Dawkins' face, he's a parliamentarian.
The look on several people's faces that night was priceless.
Are you talking about Julie Bishop?
I am.
Perchance, Joe?
I am.
Yeah. Well, funnily enough, what people tend to do when they watch the show is get on Twitter and tweet and then hashtag it. And the director of the ABC tweeted some statistics about Monday night's show today. And he said that in America, Lost is watched by 10 million people. And the recent episode, there was something like 11,000 tweets. On Monday on Q&A, 450,000 people watched, and there was something like 6,500 tweets, which works out to be about a tenfold greater amount for that.
I was involved in that. You were,
yeah,
Joe.
Yeah.
You too, Diane.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I mean, it became a meme pretty quickly when Julie Bishop did that death stare down the barrel.
Can I just say, never mind. If I ever need sharks with laser beams on their heads, I'm calling Julie Bishop.
Now, I don't know if that's going to be available online. Listeners in Australia can go to the ABC website again and go to the iView.
I think you can download it as
and you
a
can probably
podcast.
Can you?
I think you may be able to get it as a sort of a podcast type download, or even download it from the site.
Q&A on the ABC with Richard Dawkins and a whole host of other people. Very, very entertaining. Very entertaining.
And actually, Richard, that episode of Q&A was preceded by a very interesting expose of Scientology on the ABC show Four Corners. You guys all saw that, didn't you?
It was altogether a very good evening to be a skeptic.
It was quite a damning insight into Scientology, I must say.
Although I must say, it wasn't. I don't think there was anything from the perspective of people who know about the shenanigans of Scientology. I don't think there was anything new there. I mean, there were some personal stories were new, but in terms of what they do, the methods, their internal systems, the corruption, the power trips, all those things, they're well known.
The masquerading as a religion.
Stories.
I was pleased to hear this morning that, a lot of the focus that for example, Nick Xenophon and other people have been looking at the moment have been about some of the financial dealings and so on of the Church of Scientology. But Philip McGorry came out this morning wanting a lot more focus to be put on some of the dangerous psychological practices and the attacks that Scientologists make on psychiatry, which I think is a good area for them to be looking at as well.
Well, yeah, they issued a press release about that today, Joe, which Dave the Happy Singer sent around to me earlier today. He's not here today.
No, we missed Dave.
Yeah.
Big Pharma.
The Big Pharma's doing something else. And he made the observation from this press release that some of the language and the tone and the sort of structure is quite similar to something you might see from, say, the anti-vaccination lobby.
Oh.
So his suggestion was that perhaps the anti-vaccination lobby do tend to behave a little bit like a cult. And I'm just going to give you one example of a sentence that was in this press release, and I want you to substitute psychiatric drugs and the other problems with vaccination. So have a listen to this. I'll read you their version and then I'll substitute. We support parents' rights to be fully informed about adverse reactions to psychiatric drugs, including heart problems and suicidal behaviour. So so they can decide for themselves about any treatment proposed for their families, Mr. Brooks said.
Well, I don't think you need to repeat
No,
that.
you don't even need to insert.
Can I do it anyway?
Yeah, come on, do it.
We support parents' rights to be fully informed about adverse reactions to vaccination, including autism and SIDS, so they can decide for themselves about any treatment proposed for their families, Ms. Meryl Dorey said. What do you think about that?
Wow.
I mean, there's stuff all through this press release that you could just easily change the words, and it's the same thing. It's so
Send money now.
Yeah.
Where's the donate link?
Now, just to remind long-term think tank fans out there that for many months we were in our own sort of semi-private room, but now we're sort of in the back part of a Chinese restaurant.
The back part of a Chinese restaurant.
If that's the front, as we're looking over there, this must be the back.
Well, that makes it sound like we're in some seedy end of town with at the back with the crates. And
Well, finally, let me just let everybody know, and those Australian listeners and maybe international, who subscribe to our magazine, or the magazine of Australian Skeptics, I should say, The Skeptic, volume 30.
Wow.
Number 1. So it's been going for 30 years of The Skeptic. I've just received mine in the post today, so lots of good stuff in there.
actually, can I just make a point? There's one article in here which Eran and I were discussing over dinner. Can you flick to it? Because I want to...
Yeah, I'm just going to... That's about the...
It's a critique of the book Sweet Poison.
Yep. Just find that.
Have we discussed
I
David
don't
Gillespie on this?
No.
I think we have.
Maybe we should just quickly mention what happened there.
Yeah, maybe you can.
So David Gillespie wrote, he's a lawyer or an ex-lawyer, and he wrote a book about fructose, basically suggesting that the source of almost pretty much all health problems is fructose. But I think it was to be fair, he was definitely talking about obesity. He made a point about lots of other ones, but let's focus on obesity. Okay, basically he said that the obesity epidemic is due to increased consumption of fructose, and he made all kinds of statements like it's systematic poisoning. It's a miracle that we're still alive in light of all this poisoning. And he was a speaker at our national convention in November last year.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything about... I don't think many of us knew about what he was going to talk about. And I actually heard something about it previously. I think I might have even heard his Occam's Razor piece, because he was on ABC Radio National doing Occam's Razor. And I thought he had an interesting point of view and something interesting to say. But then he talked for about 45 minutes. And it became abundantly clear that he knew absolutely nothing about what he was talking about. It was quite clear, just from the examples he was giving, from the graphs, from the way he was presenting, from the language he was using, it was quite clear that he was a conspiracy theorist with no knowledge of, not just of the science, but no knowledge of what science is all about at all. And Rach and I questioned him about whether his work has been reviewed. And it turned out that he was reviewed by two people, one of whom is his father-in-law and a medical doctor, and the other one is a scientist who is known to be a promoter of this point of view. So David Gillespie might be a great lawyer, but he doesn't understand that in science, the people you show your work to have it reviewed, are the people who disagree with you, not the people who agree with you. Otherwise, it's meaningless. The review is meaningless.
But can I just interrupt for a second? On top of that, he presented the case as like a legal case, didn't he?
Yeah.
He had at the beginning he said fructose is a poison, it's the cause of a lot of health problems, it's the cause of obesity, and here's the evidence to support that.
Yes.
Instead of the way science works, where you make observations, you look at a large body of work, and then you work out what the consensus is from that.
Or even if you have a null hypothesis, he didn't conduct any of his own research, so he couldn't have a null hypothesis. But what you would sometimes do in science is work out a hypothesis, but then you try to prove it, prove that it's not wrong, that it's wrong. You disprove it rather than prove it.
Yeah.
Well, basically, what happened was that later on, Chris Forbes-Ewan, a nutritionist from Tasmania, he did an Occam's Razor piece that refuted.
Now, Occam's Razor is also...
Occam's Razor is basically
ABC
an equivalent.
Radio.
ABC Radio. He did an equivalent piece on Occam's Razor that refuted a lot of what David Gillespie said. So while I thought that the problem with David Gillespie was that he was not even wrong, because there was no way to judge whether he was right or wrong unless you were a specialist, Chris is a specialist, and he reviewed the work and basically shown that not only is David wrong, he also was, and not only was he not understanding the science, he also was cherry-picking and doing all kinds of things that in science are considered big no-no. So I contacted Chris and asked him to write an article, and he'd written a great article for the Skeptic.
I think it's worth mentioning too that you and I both, several of us asked questions of David after his presentation, but having not been familiar with his work before and not having read the book, I was just asking him based on his presentation at the time.
And we were talking about his methodology rather than about the specific topic. Because obviously we are unable to judge whether he's right or wrong. Yes.
But he didn't really appreciate that, and he took that as a personal criticism rather than in science, where your work is critiqued and that's the point, and that's how science is self-correcting. And then got on Twitter and sent us a lot of tweet messages basically saying you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. But I just wanted to point out in this article that Chris Forbes Ewan has written, he went through the book, he read the book, he went through the claims. He found one of the major claims made by Gillespie was based on a 1985 study, and that was showing that it was about fructose feeding in humans, and he claimed that this was causing a lot of problems, and so after that there were no more studies feeding fructose to humans, only to rats. So Chris Forbes Evans did a simple PubMed search, which we're all able to do, and he found that since 1985 there have been 19 other studies showing that humans have been fed high levels of fructose. So from the year 1985 to the year 2008, when this book was published, there were 19 other studies that David Gillespie just didn't like the results of, so just didn't include them in his argument.
Just to reiterate, Gillespie's basic premise is...
it's that fructose is a poison, and it's...
it's a leading cause of obesity.
It's a leading cause of obesity and lots of other health.
That's what I got from his talk, was we're all fat now.
Where's that article?
Again, I'm all fat. I'm fat because of the fruit.
It's not your fault.
It's not my fault. It's not my fault.
Yeah. But anyway, this article is in this Skeptic.
Yes, in the current issue.
30, issue number 1.
One page.
It's
14.
a really, really thorough analysis, critique of the book, and I recommend that you subscribe, and then you can read it.
And, dear listeners, there's also a little story report by me, which has been reproduced on the Skeptics website, www.skeptics.com.au, with my adventures with the body testing, the kinesiology, power balance and Fusion XL and all that sort of stuff. So that might be interesting for you to look at. Joe, Highlighter Joe we should call you.
Highlighter Joe.
Highlighter Joe.
I've left my trusty pack of rainbow highlighters at home this time, so...
Is that why it's all the same
Everything's
colour?
Yellow.
Highlight our lives for us, Joe.
A gentleman by the name of Sean David Morton, who calls himself America's Prophet, and claims to be a psychic trained by Nepalese monks in the art of time travel.
Next story. You don't have to say anymore.
Mr. Morton claims that he can foretell the future of the stock market.
Oh, that's what they call him, the prophet.
Exactly.
Thank you.
You can go home now too.
Yes.
In fact, should we just end there?
Yeah,
we should.
I think that's a good note. So he claims to be the modern-day Nostradamus, and the Dalai Lama sent him to a monastery in
probably
Nepal.
not far from the truth.
Probably not far from the truth, exactly. Where a fusion of Eastern spirituality and Western psychic techniques has helped him develop the spiritual remote viewing system. He says that he grew up in Texas, and his dinner table companions, as his parents worked for NASA, were astronauts who told him of their sightings of extraterrestrial life.
Can I stop you for a second? You see, when somebody says something, when somebody gets to the point where they say something that is so clearly, demonstrably wrong. I mean, I'm talking about the astronaut parents. that immediately leads me to the conclusion that this person is not healthy. So I would say, right, this is not somebody who's just an intentional fraud. He's not healthy.
Well, yeah, you'd think so. However, he has a newsletter with 20,000 subscribers run through his Delphi investment group, and he claimed to be able to predict the stock market, as I said, claiming to get returns as high as 117%. What he actually did, well, let me just say again, he's been sued by the Securities and Exchange Commission for securities fraud for swindling more than $6 million from investors. After promising them piles of money along with spiritual happiness. What he actually did was deposited only $3.2 million into trading accounts.
That was a bus announcement. Now, it was a very quiet one, but there it was. Nevertheless, sorry, Joe.
That won't get
If you want to go to Marrickville, now is the time.
Not particularly. So basically, he's swindled all of his subscribers out of a lot of money, and according to the authorities, he really is simply a fraud and a very, very bad psychic.
Now you've got.
So did he say up to 117%?
Up to 117%.
I love that 100 up to. You see, recently I sent an email to several people about this up to thing because. But I can't remember. The range was from 2%. It was something like, I can't remember what it was, kilograms or whatever, or percent. So, but it was something like
I remember.
from 2% or from 2% or less to 6% or more, or something like that, or something like that. Thinking, okay, that pretty much covers it.
Yep.
That's like the homeopathy report on the BBC, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people.
No, you've got a fishy story.
I have a fishy story, which in fact some of our listeners who also listen to SGU would have heard already.
Just mean that Richard needs to go.
Thank you.
You shouldn't do that on air.
Yes. Ha ha ha.
Theatre of the mind.
Theatre of the mind. Cheers.
Oh, don't urology. Don't drink your own wee.
I'm not going to put that in the show. I might. Anyway, Joe.
So, at the end of February, it was reported that somewhere in the middle of Australia, to be specific, in a place called Benhamu, which we've all been struggling to pronounce correctly, supposedly hundreds and hundreds of small white fish fell from the sky. And those who heard the SGU podcast would have heard that they'd like Richard and Rachael to go out and investigate this.
Yes.
Happy to.
So, I'd love to. If any of our listeners would like to...
if any of our listeners are very generous.
It's in the Northern Territory, isn't it?
It's...
I used to live there.
It's between Darwin and Alice Springs, I think. You know that area well.
Oh, so,
well, I've dreamed through it.
So it's only like, what? It would only take like 24 hours to get there.
If we drove.
If we drove.
No.
Yeah.
If we took a plane.
It's a long way away, please.
It would be 2 days driving, wouldn't it? At least.
At least.
Yeah, it would be, yeah.
Interestingly,
Alice is
apparently
2
it's not
days.
the first time this has happened in this small community. Apparently in 1974, they had fish falling from the sky or something similar, and the same in 2004, so it seems to be...
So if we go there, right, and wait till it rains and walk around with our mouths open...
You would.
No, but I'm thinking 74, 2010. All you have to do is wait 36 more years.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if it happened during a lightning storm, it would cook the fish? And you could... That's all right.
What's a possible explanation for it?
Well, they
There's
say...
lots. Actually, Brian Dunning had a really good...
Well, the one that they've often cited is the idea that a tornado would, or something like that, would pick up water and then...
Wait a minute.
We don't have tornadoes in Australia.
Well, according to this article, a senior forecaster from the Weather Bureau said that the geological conditions were perfect on that day for a tornado in that region. However, there hasn't actually been any reportings of any.
But I suspect that the meteorologist who was asked about this was asked, how were the conditions? You know?
Yeah,
And he said, no, that's not whether there was one. So.
Yeah. The explanation that's so far the most plausible is that these fish are able to sort of dehydrate themselves basically under the cover of...
In the mud.
And then when it rains...
After it rains, you see all these fish flopping about. Yeah. Interesting.
But I'd love to go up there. Is that the Stewart... Do we have to go up the Stewart Highway? Because that's...
It's a long way. Look,
Yeah.
I've travelled from Adelaide all the way up to Darwin, and it is a long trip.
But that's where all the scary people are too, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's
Not
where
all
people-
of them, most of them.
That's where you disappear and you're never found.
Yeah, only if you're an English tourist.
Skeptical about that.
Only if you're an English tourist.
Only-
You're sceptical.
You don't
Have you
wanna
seen
know.
Wolf Creek? You like
I'm
scary
skeptical.
movie? Really? I'm too scared to watch it.
On to something a little bit more serious, which we actually discussed a while ago. Again, this is a follow-on from... you might remember me mentioning a while back a study that had been published by a forensic pathologist by the name of Roger Byard, who'd been looking at herbal medicines and so on, and the contamination by lead, mercury, various other...
But we know that's Big
toxins.
Pharma spin.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Because Big Pharma don't make alternative medicine, do they? No.
Oh, no. Anyway, this, of course, has been sparked by Professor Karen Phelps.
Oh,
yes.
Fail.
Winner of Ben Spoon.
Winner of Ben Spoon.
Past winner of Ben Spoon.
Yes. And the thing is, and what's really bugging me about everything that Karen Phelps is saying these days is that it just starts immediately from a completely stupid premise, which is that the people who are giving these herbs out, who are treating these people, actually have some sort of valid qualifications. So,
Or knowledge. Or even knowledge.
Well, exactly.
Forget qualifications, just
Yeah,
knowledge.
Or knowledge, you're right. Knowledge is a more appropriate word. So, so Professor Phelps, basically she's saying that the lack of registration standards for all of these practitioners is putting consumers at risk. And that really it's just about the fact that some of these people are actually valid practitioners, and then there are those few alternative medicine practitioners out there who are potentially putting people at risk because they're not properly qualified and so on. And the whole premise behind this is completely ridiculous because the whole point is that the very point that they're starting from, i.e. the whatever treatments it is that they're giving, are the problem.
Joe, you're failing to mention something very important.
Yes.
Professor Karen Phelps sells these things. Okay, no, that's, of course she would say that. I mean, what would you expect? I mean, we know how psychics talk about other psychics being, like they're reputable, but other psychics...
But the problem is that Professor Phelps is seen in the media and in the public as a general practitioner, the former head of the AMA. She's seen as being part of the camp of people that we would normally expect to be putting something quite different out there.
It's a shame.
So
she's an embarrassment.
Well, that's why she won the Ben Spoon, not because she sells quackery. It wouldn't be possible to give a Ben Spoon award to every purveyor of quackery in Australia because we'd run out of cutlery. But but she won it because she abuses her reputation to do that.
That's not a good story to tell.
No, it's not.
Not a good story.
She
to
also
tell.
recently commented on the decision from the evidence check about homeopathy, and that interview was done on ABC Radio, and she was put up as a person of great knowledge and great reputation, and was saying, well, homeopathy might just need to be tested a bit more. It was.
That's what she said.
I can't remember. What did she say, Joe?
I can't remember actually.
But she was basically saying that she disagreed with the decision made from the evidence check. And that there is value in homeopathy.
What about that in the Northern Star? That homeopathy.
Oh my God! Do you know what happened with that? Okay, this is so funny. There was an article in the Northern Star, which is the local paper of the Northern Rivers region
Up in
of
New South Wales. Yep.
And it was about the evidence check and the committee's recommendations to the NHS to pull funding from homeopathy.
So that's the AVN's local paper.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And they talked to a practicing homeopath in the area, and she said, well, because homeopathy doesn't prove positive when tested with science, the science has to be wrong.
Basically, that's what she said.
I'm paraphrasing, but basically that's what she said. Because the science doesn't show it works, science is wrong.
Science is wrong, yeah.
So we tweeted that. You and I tweeted it a few days ago.
Yeah.
And somebody responded to you saying that, pretty much. Because homeopathy doesn't work, the science is wrong. Just before I left home, there's a couple of homeopaths on Twitter that some of my followers tend to have a bit of a go at. One of them's called Dr. Nancy Malik. Mm-hmm. Apparently, she tweeted that exact phrase about an hour ago.
What?
Yes, she actually tweeted that phrase that you and I tweeted about a week ago, and one of your followers picked up on. And I tweeted it as a joke, and she actually tweeted that as a serious...
Because they believe that. That's how
they do. They do.
But there was that homeopathy in New Zealand, that's exactly what she says. She said, we know homeopathy works, but now
we're waiting for science
we just wait to catch up. Yeah, that's the way they view it.
Well, the funny thing
That's
about
why
this...
they're called TBs.
The funny thing about this woman in the Northern Rivers article was she said, we need to formulate a way to thoroughly test homeopathy. And somebody said, we have it, it's called science.
Point which Karen Phelps has appeared in is there's been a bit of coverage recently in the Herald about the issue of nutrition in cancer for cancer patients, and once again she's come out commenting on the lack of training for doctors about nutritional therapy and good nutrition in cancer. Now, this has really, really irked me because one of the problems that they're talking about is how so many people are being diagnosed with cancer, more and more people with cancer are going onto these really, really extreme diets, cutting out a lot of foods, cutting out pretty much anything except raw foods, all this juicing and so on. And this is a really, really major issue because you look at the people, the people I'm looking after who have got cancer and who are having chemotherapy and radiotherapy. The one thing these people need more than anything is good nutrition. But when you talk about good nutrition, you're talking about any calories that they can possibly get and keep down. So, when we talk to people about what they can eat when they're undergoing cancer treatments, you don't tell them, stop eating this, stop eating that. When these people are having chemotherapy and radiotherapy, they don't keep much down at all. If they want to eat chocolate, if they want to eat anything that is going to give them some energy and some nutrition to get through their treatment, well, the last thing these people need to be doing is going onto these crazy diets where they're actually cutting out the things that they need.
Wow.
So to have people like Karen Phelps advocating, this sort of nutrition for people with cancer is completely counter to what the Cancer Council and what cancer specialists actually say. So,
and also, Joe, I got a press release from Loretta Marin, who's known as the Jelly Bean Lady, and she does a lot of advocacy work in debunking myths surrounding cancer, particularly. And the ACCC, which is the Australian Consumer Commission, something.
Competition Consumer Commission.
They actually just came down heavily on an alternative cancer retreat somewhere in Queensland, who were espousing the benefits of these diets, and I've told them that they basically have to stop doing that until their investigations are complete because it's nonsense. Absolutely.
Well, the Cancer Council has said that they've been getting more and more phone calls to their support lines from people who are following these kinds of diets or who are asking advice, and they say that they're often getting people who are coming back to them a year down the track, having spent all their money on some retreat somewhere or some unproven nutritional therapy, and then coming back to them with basically a untreatable cancer, and really, as they've said here, asking for financial assistance to plan their funeral because it's really bad.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe. Yeah, sometimes sometimes I think to myself, what are we doing? I mean, we spend an awful lot of time being skeptics and running around and doing jobs that I think the government don't do enough of the time. But I guess we've got good motives. When I hear a story like that, people delaying proper health care. And we do what we can, don't we? We do what we can. So thank you, everybody, for listening. And I'm always curious to know in the back of my mind when we're doing the think tank, I've always got this thought that, what are our listeners doing at the moment?
Are you sure you want to know?
Sorry, how many of them are in Australia? Because the ones in Australia are probably having dinner.
I don't know the breakdown. No, not right at the moment.
When they're
When they're listening. Now, all those people who are driving cars, hello.
Put your hand up now.
Put your hand up
One hand
Now, all
up.
of those-
Honk your horn.
Honk your horn. All those people in the gym, keep at it. Well done.
Anybody who's in the toilet, raise a hand. No, not that hand.
Those people who are rollerblading, look out for rabbits. Diane's gone red again.
See ya.
You should never have told us that story.
People who, insomniacs, thank you for listening to us. I'm sure we'll send you to sleep.
People who are grocery shopping. I like to listen to podcasts when I go grocery shopping. Yeah.
Yeah, I do too.
Well,
Go late night shopping and I listen to podcasts then.
Yeah.
Okay.
I used to like listening when I used to go for a walk, but now that I've started swimming, it's not so easy.
Those people swimming.
But you listen to podcasts when you're cleaning.
I listen to
colonoscopes, don't
podcasts
you?
when I'm cleaning endoscopes.
People who are cleaning. Hello to you right now. Cleaning out toilets and washing the floor and. Thank you.
Cleaning endoscope.
I really hope that we're keeping you company. If you're listening by yourself and you like downloading the show, I hope that we are good company for you. And I'd like to thank this present company, Dr. Rachael. Thank you again.
Thank you, Richard.
Dianne, rabbits and all.
Thank you, Richard.
Eran Segev.
Thanks, Richard.
And Joe Benhamu. Thank you.
Thank
and
you, Richard.
until next think tank, cheers, everybody.
Richard.
Yeah.
It's gone quiet.
What happened to the jackhammer?
I think the crystal miners have gone on strike.
On strike?
Yeah, well, they're probably getting a few pains and aches and stuff, and they need a bit of a liver cleansing, so they've probably gone on strike to get access to the very crystals that they're mining.
Right.
Which is good for us because we can close the show in peace and quiet.
We can.
Thank you, listeners.
Yes, thank you, listeners.
It's been a wonderful episode again.
Thank you, Stefan.
It's great to see you again, Richard.
Thank you, Stefan.
We don't see each other that much. We only get together for these intros and outros and the occasional think tank.
Not like the old days.
Oh, we used to catch up every week.
In the old days when I used to come around to the Excelsior in Glebe.
Ah, yes.
Where you were doing the music.
Those were the days.
Those were the days.
And you used to fold your little origami things for all the backpackers. They used to love it.
Nearly 20 years ago.
Don't tell me that. I was having a nice day until then. But no, thanks very much. And thank you, listeners, once again for tuning in. The Skeptic Zone going from strength to strength.
Yeah, and episode 74, next week, we have an interview with one of the science teachers from Redeem Baptist School.
Redeem Baptist School.
Here in Sydney, because the school does very well year after year in the National Student Science Awards, or the New South Wales Student Science Awards.
And they're Baptists.
You will find out.
Wow.
How can this be? It's interesting.
I'm curious. I'm curious
too.
I will. We'll see you next week, I guess.
Okay, bye.
Thanks, Richard. Bye.
You've been listening to The Skeptic Zone. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for comments, contacts, and extra video reports.
The Skeptic Zone.